On today's edition of Steelers Talk, I'm going to walk you guys through 5 Steelers position battles that you as a Steelers fan should be keeping your eye out for during the NFL offseason program this year with OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and of course, training camp coming up here in just a couple of months. Which position battles are going to be up for grabs for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year? That's what we're going to be talking about today. But first, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We provide you guys daily Steelers updates for free on this channel. So if you guys want to stay fully informed on the black and gold 365 days a year, we are currently the largest Steelers run, or individually run Steelers news program anywhere on YouTube. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for the very latest. All right, so let's start with nickel corner, and this is a position that was a big problem for the Steelers, especially late in the season last year with Cam Sutton really crapping the bed when he got back from his suspension last season. And, Beanie Bishop Jr. is back, and he started the first half of the season for the Steelers, played pretty decently. I would say he was a little bit of a liability in coverage, which is why this is a competition, but he obviously has the inline road to the job because he started a number of games for the Steelers last year. But they did bring in Brandin Echols, who has some slot experience, Donte Kent, who has a ton of slot experience from Central Michigan. He was their 7th-round pick, and then Sebastion Castro, the UDFA from Iowa, was somebody that was expected to go sometime on day 3 as well, and also is very proficient playing in the slot, where he played quite a bit with the Hawkeyes. So this is not going to be handed to Beanie Bishop Jr. necessarily, but I do think he's in pole position, and I think he does do enough to win the job week 1. Now, he's going to have to, once again, prove himself during the season if he doesn't want to get replaced by one of these younger players, like Donte Kent or Sebastion Castro during the season. And, he is undersized, but apparently he's put on a lot of muscle and he's added some strength to his frame this year. And he certainly has a nose for the football. He had a couple game-clinching interceptions last year. He has a knack for making big plays, man. And you can never have enough playmakers on your defense, especially if Beanie can figure it out here in his second year in terms of being a coverage player for the Steelers defense. So pick your nickel for me down there in the comments section. Who do you want to be the starting nickel corner for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year? Let me know if you want Beanie Bishop Jr., type BB. If you want Brandin Echols, type BE. Type Donte Kent, type DK if you want Donte Kent, or type SC if you think it's going to be Sebastion Castro. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by letting me know who you think is going to be the starting nickel for your Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Another position battle that I'm going to be keeping my eye on here is the number 2 inside linebacker for this defense alongside Patrick Queen. Now, Queen is the guy that, he's clear number 1. He's the guy you paid all that money to last offseason. But my big question is, who's going to rise up the ranks here and be that guy next to him? Last year was Landon Roberts on early downs with Peyton Wilson coming in on later downs, but now you're injecting Cole Holcomb and Malik Harrison to the mix while taking away a Landon Roberts who filled this role last year. So does Peyton Wilson take that step up from a rotational player to a full-time starter? Does Cole Holcomb retain his starting position? Remember, he was a full-time starter for this defense before his gruesome knee injury back in 2023. And then they spent a decent amount of money on Malik Harrison. Now, Harrison's probably more of a special teams player, so I would say he has the lowest amount of chance, and I do think it's probably going to come down to Wilson versus Holcomb for that number 2 linebacker spot. But if I'm going to have to guess right now, I actually think it's going to be Peyton Wilson, the second-year player out of NC State. He showed some really good things last year in the Steelers defense and in his rookie season, and I think that he's going to continue that upward trajectory this year. And Cole Holcomb, I think, is going to slide in as that really, really solid number 3 linebacker. And, but this position, as you guys know, as Steelers fans, this has been a big problem for the Steelers in many years. Last year, it finally felt like this position group stabilized, and I once again think that they're in position to do that yet again this year with Wilson and Holcomb rounding out the secondary pieces in this linebacker room. Then we get to the running back position here, and I'm going to be excited to see the dynamic between Jaylen Warren and rookie running back out of Iowa, Caleb Johnson, and who's going to kind of, assert themselves as the number 1 back in this system. Now, Warren, as you guys know, if you've been watching this channel, I love Jaylen Warren. I think that he's an awesome player. I think especially in a third down, kind of secondary back role, he's one of the best in the National Football League. He's explosive. He's got incredible jump cuts. He's got great contact balance. He plays the game the right way. He's phenomenal as a pass protector. But, man, Caleb Johnson, I think, is everything that the Steelers were hoping Najee Harris was going to be. He's got great vision. He's got great explosiveness. The GPS trackers have tracked him at like 21, 22 miles per hour multiple times, which is elite speed once he gets going. And he is an elite outside zone rusher, which is why Arthur Smith, who is an outside zone type of offensive coordinator, went out and got him. So my guess is I think Caleb Johnson, with his size and speed and vision combination, he's going to be able to make some big plays early on, and he's going to assert himself as this team's number one running back pretty early in the season. Like maybe by week 6, he is somebody that's getting those first and second down reps, and he's getting a majority of the rushing carries for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And Jaylen Warren can kind of slot in to maybe his more natural position there as a third down back, and somebody that can be a nice change of pace to Caleb Johnson. But at the end of the day here, guys, I think this running back room has a chance to be one of the best in football for many years to come. Then we get to the fullback position, and it's going to be interesting to see if Arthur Smith plans on using a fullback this year, okay? Because last year they kind of dabbled with it a little bit with Connor Hayward, but he really wasn't all that great. Right now I would say he is the favorite if they do use a fullback to be that player, but they did bring in DJ Thomas Jones as a UDFA, somebody that's very violent and a good blocker that I could see potentially earning a spot on the roster this year if he has a good offseason program. And then somebody to keep your eye on here, guys, especially with rumors swirling around out there that the Steelers might be interested in Jonnu Smith. Darnell Washington, is like a giant fullback and a great blocker. I think would be a lot of fun for the Pittsburgh Steelers if you're looking for somebody to lead block for you and work out in space as just an absolute behemoth and athletic monster out there to just bury people ahead of guys like Caleb Johnson running behind him. I think that would be a really scary thing for the Steelers to do, but certainly something that could be a lot of fun to watch as a Steelers fan. But my best guess right now is that Connor probably wins that job again. Now we'll see what happens with the whole Jonnu Smith situation if they bring him in, and if that happens, Connor's job security is certainly in jeopardy at that point. But if I'd have to guess right now based on the current configuration on the roster, I think Hayward probably makes the team, and he is the first fullback on the roster. Then another thing that I'm going to be watching closely here is number 2 wide receiver. Now, Jordan Schultz came out from Fox Sports and said the Steelers are looking for another playmaker on offense to add before the season. Who knows if that's just Jonnu Smith, whether that's adding another receiver, or whether that's both, adding a tight end and a wide receiver. But right now you got Calvin Austin III, who was your second most productive receiver last year. You got Robert Woods, who you're bringing in here, who I do think is an improvement in the Van Jefferson quote-unquote role in this offense as an early down player. And then Roman Wilson as a slot wide receiver, I think is going to have a good season for the Pittsburgh Steelers and establish himself as a legit starter in this league. And I think the real battle here is between Robert Woods and, the field, where it's like I think that Robert is going to have to prove to the Pittsburgh Steelers that they don't need to add another receiver to play on early downs, because Calvin Austin III is too small to be a run blocker in this scheme. And, you could definitely say the same thing about Roman Wilson. But Robert Woods does bring the requisite size. He is a good run blocker. He is a good locker room presence, and he is a good, possession type receiver at this point in his career. I do think he is better than Van Jefferson, and I do think he's better than what Allen Robinson was when he came to the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 years ago. But my best guess is the Steelers will add another receiver, especially after they potentially bring in Aaron Rodgers, all right? And I think that it's certainly possible that some of the top free agent receivers, guys like Amari Cooper and guys like Keenan Allen, 2 older receivers at the tail end of their careers, they might be waiting to see what Rodgers does before they make a decision. Because if he goes to Pittsburgh, I could see Pittsburgh being a more desirable destination for guys like Allen and Cooper, and I don't think they would want to sign on the dotted line if they're not 100% sure Rodgers would be the one throwing them the football, not Mason Rudolph, who I don't think they would be interested in playing with. But I do have an open mind about Bobby Trees here. He's a great locker room presence. I still think he is like a very low-end wide receiver 3 type of player where he's adequate and he's a good possession type guy, good run blocker that can fill that quote-unquote Van Jefferson role and run block on early downs if asked to do that. So we'll see what he does this offseason, but I do think the Steelers probably bring in another receiver at some point. So predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers add another wide receiver before the start of the season? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section to let me know what you guys think about the Steelers' wide receiver position. So just a little bit of a recap here. The position battles that you should be keeping your eye out for here during the offseason is nickel corner, number 2 inside linebacker, number 1 running back, fullback, and then number 2 wide receiver. We'll see what kind of moves the Steelers make this offseason. I mean, like if they get another receiver, you can just cross out number 2 receiver because that player's going to fill that role. But that's where we're at right now in Steelers Nation. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.